Hi, this is your host, and today we'll explore the life of a man who revolutionized the world with his car company. That's right, today we're taking a look at the life of Mr. Henry Ford. Henry Ford was born in 1863 in Michigan. His father was William, a farmer, while his mother was Mary Ford. He had two brothers and one sister. The family was well off for farmers, and when Henry was just 2 years old, they were able to buy an 80-acre farm. As a boy, he liked helping out on the farm and driving the horses. One thing that stood out about young Henry was his affinity for machinery. It seemed like he was always tinkering around with some sort of contraption or another. He would spend hours in the barn with the farm animals, but he would also spend hours in the barn taking things apart and trying to figure out how they worked. This fascination with machines would eventually lead him to become one of the most successful inventors of all time. When Henry was 12 years old, his father died. This meant that Henry had to take on more responsibility around the farm in order to help out his mother. Despite the added workload, Henry still found time to pursue his interests in mechanics. He built a small engine powered by steam, and he also began experimenting with different types of tractors. Unfortunately, his mother would not let him continue building these machines because she wanted him to focus on his studies instead. So, at age 16, he left home and went to Detroit, where he got a job at a mechanical workshop. He started out as an apprentice, but soon he was promoted to chief engineer. In 1881, Henry met Thomas Edison, and they became friends. They shared a passion for invention, and they would often work together on new ideas. In fact, it was Edison who convinced Ford to start his own company. At first, Ford was hesitant. He wasn't sure if he was ready to take such a big step, but Edison encouraged him to go for it. So in 1896, Ford Motor Company was born. The first car that they built was called the quadricycle. It looked like a tricycle, but it had 4 wheels instead of 3. It also had a 2-cylinder engine that was located in the front of the vehicle. This made it different from most cars of the day whose engines were in the back. Ford believed that this design made the car more efficient and safer to drive. The company started out slowly, but soon they were producing hundreds of cars per year. They sold well because they were relatively cheap. But as the company grew, so did its problems. One day there was a fire at the factory and all of the machinery was destroyed. Ford was devastated, but he refused to give up. He borrowed money from friends and family and started building new machines. Once again, in 1908, the company was back up and running, and they produced their most famous car yet, the Model T. It was an instant hit, and people all over the country were buying them. This success allowed Ford to expand his business even further. He opened factories all over the world and he hired thousands of workers. At its peak, Ford Motor Company was one of the largest employers in the world. While Ford was busy growing his business, he was also making changes to the way that cars were driven. He developed the first assembly line that was used to build automobiles. This made the process much faster and cheaper. Before the assembly line, it took about 12 hours to build a single Model T, but after the assembly line was introduced, it only took about 90 minutes. This change made Ford Motor Company the most efficient car manufacturer in the world, and it also helped to make cars affordable for the average person. Before the Model T, cars were considered to be luxuries. Only the rich could afford them. But after the assembly line was introduced, prices dropped dramatically and soon everyone wanted one. In addition to making cars more affordable, Ford also made them more accessible. He created a new type of engine that was smaller and more powerful than the ones that were being used at the time. This engine could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in less than 10 seconds. It also had a top speed of 70 miles per hour, which was unheard of at the time. All of these innovations made Ford Motor Company very successful. By 1920, they were selling over 2 million cars per year. Unfortunately, not everyone was happy with Ford's success. Many people were jealous of his wealth and power. They began spreading rumors about him and his company in an effort to hurt their reputation. For example, some people said that Ford cars were unsafe. Others said that the company was polluting the environment. These rumors were damaging the company's reputation, so Ford decided to fight back. He hired a team of investigators to look into the claims being made about his company. They found no evidence to support any of the rumors, and they even uncovered evidence that the rumors had been started by Ford's competitors. Armed with this information, Ford went on the offensive. He held a press conference and publicly accused his competitors of trying to damage his company. He then launched a series of ads that attacked the other companies directly. These ads were so effective that they turned the public against Ford's competitors and ultimately led to his company as a success. As Ford's wealth grew, so did his influence. He became one of the most powerful men in America, and he used his power to help others. For example, he established the Ford Foundation, which has donated billions of dollars to charity. He also created the famous $5 day, which gave all of his employees a raise. Before this, factory workers typically earned about $2 per day. But Ford raised his workers' wages to $5 per day without reducing their hours. This made Ford Motor Company one of the best places to work in America. His employees were so happy with the raise that many of them stayed with the company for decades. In addition to raising wages, Ford also improved working conditions for factory workers. He introduced the concept of the weekend, which gave his employees 2 days off per week. This was unheard of at the time, as most factories operated 7 days a week. Ford also reduced the number of hours that workers had to work each day from 12 to 8. He also implemented a number of safety measures to protect his workers from injury. These measures included the introduction of the safety glass, which was a major improvement over the glass that was being used at the time. Safety glass was much less likely to shatter, which saved many lives when accidents occurred. In addition to safety glass, Ford also introduced seat belts, which were another major improvement over the seat cushions that were being used at the time. Seat cushions were uncomfortable and provided little protection in case of an accident, but seat belts were much more comfortable and also provided much more protection. All of these measures made Ford Motor Company one of the safest places to work in America. Despite all of his accomplishments, Ford was not perfect. He had some strange and even creepy habits. For example, he was obsessed with cleanliness, and he would often wash his hands 10 times per day. He also had a strange fascination with death, and he would often visit the homes of people who had died in his cars. Some people believe that this was because Ford was afraid of dying himself. He was known to be very superstitious, and he believed that if he could study the deaths of others, he could learn how to avoid dying himself. Whatever the reason, Ford's obsession with death was well known, and many people found it to be creepy. Another strange habit of Ford's was his tendency to hoard things. He collected everything from newspapers to furniture to animals. His home was filled with so much stuff that it was nearly impossible to move through it. Despite these strange habits, Ford was a beloved figure for most of his life. People saw him as a genius inventor and a kind-hearted philanthropist. However, as he grew older, his health began to decline. He suffered from a number of ailments, including diabetes, heart disease, and prostate cancer. Eventually, these health problems caught up with him and he died in 1947 at the age of 86. He was survived by his brother, a sister, several nieces and nephews, and many friends. Henry Ford was a complicated man with both admirable and creepy qualities. Despite his flaws, he changed the world with his invention of the automobile. He also made great contributions to the fields of manufacturing and labor relations. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Henry Ford was one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. If you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching.